if you have been meditating, you're like, I don't know how to get there. It takes practice. It takes non-judgment, not judging yourself if you're not getting there. And sometimes it does require you to do this with someone else. And that's why I find it to be so powerful as a modality that I use with my clients. The change that I see in people from before and after this practice is remarkable. And it brings me so much joy and fulfillment, truly, in my heart. Like my heart sings when I see it, because all of a sudden the light in their eyes is brighter. It's like they're glowing because they have come back to themselves. They've connected to themselves. They've found an answer, or at least a signal or some sort of clue as to what that next step might be. And maybe that next step is to do nothing. Or maybe it's just a nugget of wisdom that they needed to hear, that sticks with them, that they think about day after day after day, that all of a sudden maybe starts to subtly shift how they operate, or how they hold themselves, or the words they use, or how they interact with people, or the decisions they make. So there's so many things that you can come out of this space with. Welcome to Side Note, the podcast, where we get real about what it takes to actually build something meaningful. I'm sitting down with power players and thought leaders to explore what makes us tick, from deep psychology to cosmic insight, from entrepreneurial wisdom to intuitive, divine feeling breakthroughs. Because success is about way more than what's in the business books. So join me for conversations that'll change the way you think about business, life, and everything in between. Today, we're going to talk about why behind meditation. Why do I come out with these meditations? What's the impact of them? And what you can expect from the future from this podcast? Because what I've seen is, in my experience, I have this kind of what I have seen as a parallel life. So half my life has been advancing in corporate and marketing, and the other half has always been steeped in spiritual practices like learning meditation, different styles of meditation, the background of them, mindfulness, trying out different modalities, becoming interested in astrology and human design and all sorts of things that are more on the cosmic divine side of life rather than your typical boardroom marketing business stuff. And it's been a really interesting dichotomy to experience. And the thing that I come back to as a business owner and as a coach is that meditation isn't just a tool that, benefits the brain and how you operate and reduces stress and all of those great, fabulous things. I see meditation as a tool to go deeper and to catch your breath and to see things more clearly and even dive for answers that are locked in your subconscious. So when I say that, I think what helps me illustrate this is when I went on this 100-hour, 10-day Vipassana meditation retreat. I had done meditation plenty of times, sat for 5 minutes, 30 minutes here, maybe an hour if it was a big day. And every single time I leave feeling more clear. I leave feeling grounded, more like myself. I find that my natural personality kind of bubbles up effortlessly. And it's been a really wonderful tool to connect with myself. But when I went on this retreat and I went deep, 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 10 days, no electronics, no talking, it was silent. All the meditations were basically silent except for some instruction that was recorded each night. The first day or two was about clearing out my thoughts that would be just endless, these ruminating thoughts that I would find myself in, or on these trains of thought that I feel like I couldn't get off. So I was first training my brain to just come back to the present. And I think that's the meditation that a lot of us practice day in and day out. And that's because we're inundated with stimuli. We have tons of notifications and new information coming in. So when we sit down to meditate, it's often that we're just sorting through those and trying to stay anchored to our body. But what happens when you bust through that and you actually stay with it for an extended period of time? This is now day 2, day 3, day 4 of this retreat I'm speaking to, things become even more clear and you start to receive information. It's not information thrust upon you in the form of a notification saying, hey, your Uber Eats is coming. It's more of this feeling type message that you receive and it resonates in your body. It's almost like you don't even hear it. And at least for me, this is the case. And so what I found by day 3, day 4 of this meditation retreat, my sole focus was to be focused on my physical body, because that's Vipassana meditation. You're just focused on the physical, and you start to do body scans and, move your awareness from head to toe, basically. And you stay on certain areas of the body for a short amount of time, but you just keep going. So it's very simple. But what I found is that as I would do this, I would be on a part of the body that maybe felt tense or restricted. And then I would notice that physical sensation relieve itself. It'd start to feel a bit lighter, and then I would move on. But oftentimes, then I would receive a message, as if my body held a message for me in that area. And me just acknowledging it, just recognizing it, not trying to change it in any way, shape, or form, all of a sudden, something would bubble up, like an image of a friend that I needed to forgive, or an image of myself in a younger experience that I maybe forgot about. And then that had some sort of message for me for my present day. Or the moment where I realized my brain loved to write, and that's a very important hobby of mine. Or that music helps me connect to my emotions. It helps me feel them, because sometimes they're so big that they can be scary to feel. But really what I'm saying here is that meditation is our way of going deeper. And what I find with a lot of business owners is that there's so much happening all the time. It can be difficult to catch your breath. So if you do find yourself stuck in the past, or stuck in the future, stuck on what you need to do, or stuck on keeping things running at a fast pace, whatever it is, I really recommend meditation as a way to come back to yourself. And it's even more powerful when you do it with people around you, right? If you can get to a room where there's meditation happening, mindfulness, whatever form of meditation feels most resonant to you. But why I include it in this podcast and in my coaching practice is because of the transformations that I've seen. When clients work with me, we're not just talking about how to, improve customer revenue numbers, or what marketing campaign they should run, or how they might need to rebrand. It's so much deeper, and it's so much broader. It's, hey, how is your relationship with trust right now? Hey, where is this fear coming from? Let's dive in. If you are anything like me, you have probably found yourself staring at your business's marketing copy until it feels like your eyes want to bleed. And maybe you're thinking, is this too corporate? Or does this sound like my neighbor's sketchy essential oil business? It's really tricky finding that sweet spot. After 13 years, I have noticed mistake after mistake when it comes to people's marketing, and messaging is a big one. But there are 9 others that I identified over this time, and I put all of those into a sweet little guide for you called Common Mistakes Entrepreneurs Make in Marketing and How to Fix Them. You can think of this as your what not to wear guide for business, with a lot of helpful pointers for which direction to move in when you stumble upon these roadblocks. So you can get that in the show notes. With that, let's get back to the episode. And then with these certain questions or things that we land on, we enter a space together that I guide them through. So it's not us sitting in silence together on a Zoom call. That's not how it works. It's me grounding us both, and it's really turning on my own intuition skills so I understand where to lead them. And in that guided visualization together, I don't plan these. They are always organic and in the present, and completely rooted in the clarity that this first person is seeking. And so what we do together is, I'll lead them in. We both feel grounded. We're in this sacred space together, eyes closed, but it's like I can feel their energy. It's like I can see them clear as day in my mind and what's happening energetically with them. And then we start to walk down a path together. And of course, that's going to look different every single time for every single person. It's like when you go to sleep at night, very rarely do you have the exact same dream twice. And that's how these operate. And what we do is we really get to the heart of what's happening, because it's almost never, oh, you have to find someone to redo your website or redo your brand, or, oh, you have to go find an agency, or, oh, you have to do X, Y, Z. The deeper layers of these occurrences in our life have a lesson, have a message for us. So again, like meditation, it's like in this space with a coach, going through this step by step, gently, deeply, then all of a sudden things become clear. You can catch your breath. You feel rooted in the present. You feel like there's space around you. And it's so powerful to see that shift, because once we do find that clarity, find those answers, then I gently bring us out of that visualization, that meditation. We come back to looking at each other on Zoom or in person, wherever we might be. And the change that I see in people from before and after this practice is remarkable. And it brings me so much joy and fulfillment, truly, in my heart. Like my heart sings when I see it, because all of a sudden the light in their eyes is brighter. It's like they're glowing because they have come back to themselves. They've connected to themselves. They've found an answer, or at least a signal or some sort of clue as to what that next step might be. And maybe that next step is to do nothing. Or maybe it's just a nugget of wisdom that they needed to hear, that sticks with them, that they think about day after day after day, that all of a sudden maybe starts to subtly shift how they operate, or how they hold themselves, or the words they use, or how they interact with people, or the decisions they make. So there's so many things that you can come out of this space with. And, if you have been meditating, you're like, I don't know how to get there. It takes practice. It takes non-judgment, not judging yourself if you're not getting there. And sometimes it does require you to do this with someone else. And that's why I find it to be so powerful as a modality that I use with my clients, because they are just along for the ride. And because of that, they get to let go. And I think because they're not trying to meditate in a certain way or hold their spine at a certain angle, they can really relax and find those answers even more quickly in a space that I hold for them. And yeah, I felt really called to talk about this on the podcast, because we're going to start coming out with more solo episodes where I talk about different business lessons, challenges, things I'm seeing my clients go through that I think other people might benefit from. But directly after those episodes, we're going to release a meditation about that topic. And so you'll get to experience exactly what I'm talking about. You will get to go through a journey that I hold for you that is custom to these certain lessons and things that we come out with. So I am absolutely thrilled to start doing this. You've probably seen meditations on this podcast in the past, and those are a good little dose of, 3 to 5 minutes that are quite general. We came out with one on New Year's Day that was about clarity and ease, especially thinking about this new year. It wasn't about goal setting. It wasn't about planning, because I'm here to say a lot of times plans change, and my own goals for 2025, I really pulled back and I made them quite simple, and I tried not to put too much pressure on it, because I could feel into kind of the energy of January. And I thought, this feels like there's a lot of change coming. It also feels like there's maybe some clouds around that I can't really see through right now. So my goal is actually just to come back to myself, like always, which I think is just our life goal, to be honest. I really believe that we come into this life and our mission is to come home to who we are. And we do that every single day for our entire lives. And it is such a gift when we can see it from that lens and be gentle with ourselves as we move through day after day. I thank you for being here for this short little meditation announcement and why I think it's valuable, how it's been valuable to me. I guess I'll wrap it up by talking about, the results of that longer silent meditation retreat that I went to, and then also how I meditate on a constant basis. And the end of the retreat, I left feeling so incredibly clear and happy. And I felt like I moved through layers of myself through the process of meditation that were difficult. I reconnected to my body in a way that I never knew was possible. I felt like before the retreat, I was separated from head and body and I was stuck in my head. And then after the retreat, I felt like my senses were heightened. I could hear better. I could taste better. I remember listening to music, being able to pick out all of the instruments, and like hearing their own tracks almost. I naturally attracted opportunities to me. It was after that I started working for LinkedIn. And it was an opportunity that came to me in an email and said, hey, we're looking for someone. We want you at LinkedIn. And then I interviewed and I got it. I moved to Denver after that because I kept getting messages. At the time I lived in New York and I kept getting these things about Denver. So I made the move a couple months later, and then I ended up meeting my now husband and dog in Colorado when I lived there in Denver. And so again, it's just another example of how when we take the space to be with ourselves in a really deep way, and even more so if that space can be held by someone so we can relax into that and actually find those nuggets of wisdom or those little signposts that tell us where to go or what to focus on, the magic that can naturally occur when we listen. Now, fast forward to today, it's been about 4 years since that retreat. And I will be honest, I don't meditate every single day, but I do try to practice mindfulness every day. And sometimes that looks like just going in my backyard with a cup of tea or coffee and just watching my plants and the hummingbirds and the other birds that fly around. And sometimes that's just going on a walk with my dog if I don't have a lot of time, but being really present and even tuning into how my feet are walking and how I'm walking on the surface of each foot and keeping an eye on my dog and just really trying to anchor into the present moment. And then other times I will sit down and meditate. And me personally, I am highly intuitive. I don't know if you're familiar with human design, but if you are, I have like a lot of open centers. So I've had many people over time tell me, if you wanted to, you could be a psychic medium. I don't have an interest in becoming a psychic medium right now, but I have had many psychic experiences. And I guess now I should probably tell you those. Lots of different things. So one really cool one is that, I was meditating a lot. It was after I moved to Denver. I was single and I was alone. I didn't have June, my dog, yet. And I was really taking the time to just anchor in myself. It was technically during COVID. I had a lot of time on my hands. So I was like, let's bring back all those juicy lessons from the meditation retreat and like really understand myself. And I had this dream, October of 2020. And of course, I was single at the time. It was hard to date because it was COVID. So I was like, am I ever going to meet someone? I feel like all my friends had a partner and I just felt really alone. And I had this dream of this guy. And he and I were kind of just like laying on a bed, and the bed had turquoise sheets and there was a red Japanese style dresser in the background. And this guy had green eyes and brown, blonde, curly hair. And there was this almost like body feeling resonant message of this is your guy. And I think he said, I love you in the dream. And then I woke up and I was like, whoa, that was so cool. Who was that guy? And I was getting in the habit of writing down my dreams at the time. So I wrote these things down: turquoise sheets, red Japanese dresser, guy with green eyes and kind of curly blondish brown hair. Fast forward to March of 2021, and I forgot about this dream. You forget about your dreams even if you write them down. 6 months go by, day in, day out, life accumulates. And then I was on a dating app, and actually 2 of my friends had visited Colorado, and they started messing with the filters on my dating app, and they started swiping for me. And so all of a sudden, instead of just dating guys within, a 10-mile radius in Denver, because I wasn't trying to like pick up the lumberjacks like deep in the mountains who were 2 hours away. About a week after they left, I came across this guy from San Diego, and I thought nothing of it. I thought, oh, he looks cute. He looks fun. I liked his answers on different prompts. And then we ended up on our first date. It was David, my husband. We started dating each other. We started talking. I thought he was super funny. We got along really well. Like, it was just so easy to be around him. And then fast forward, we're fully dating by this point. It's probably 6 months into our relationship. And I go on a retreat. And to be perfectly honest, it was an ayahuasca retreat. And I knew ayahuasca was like very, very deep and intense. And so I wanted to go through my journals, and I was very intentional about that retreat. I wanted to go with a list of questions and things that I would find through this experience. And I will save ayahuasca for a subject for another podcast episode. But when I was going through these old journals, I came across that journal entry of October 2020 and I froze. My whole body it was like I started a cold sweat. Like the world seemed to stop when I read the description of the green eyes and the curly blondish brown hair and the dresser and the sheets. And I thought to mine, like, oh my God, I think I dreamt of David 6 months before I met him. And then I went to drop off June, my dog, at his house so he could watch June before I went up the mountains to the ayahuasca retreat. And when I dropped her off, I was like, hold on a moment. And then I walked to his bedroom, and sure enough, he had these like deep teal, kind of turquoise looking sheets. And his dresser was this Japanese style dresser. I always thought it was so cool. And it was like a cherry wood. And actually, we still have it. It's in our bedroom now. And I just I can't describe it. It was like my whole body felt like chills and fireworks, and like I was frozen in time, but also like so lit up, and just it was the wildest experience to recognize that I actually did receive this prophetic dream about David. And how cool it was that I actually didn't recognize him at first, and that I came across this about 6 months in. And I really think, with David and our relationship, like we are totally meant for each other. And I feel such security and confidence in him as my life partner. But it was really cool to have that experience to even more so say, yeah, girl, this is your guy. I've had a couple of other intuitive psychic experiences too. And I use those two words kind of interchangeably. I resonate more with intuitive. I think psychic, that word has a negative stigma. And I think that when people think, oh, you're psychic, that you know everything about them in the world and can give them answers on the fly. And that's not how I experience my intuition. It has to be more intentional, and it's cultivated through deep space with myself, through things like meditation and a deep connection. I'm not taking mushrooms and sitting on top of a hill and channeling that way. That's not my mode. But other things that have happened even before I went to that meditation retreat, there was this experience in 2018, and one of my really good friends, I had known him for years. I had known him since middle school, and he really was like a brother to me. And I knew he was going through a rough time. There were so many instances around that chapter of life that I could just tell he was really sensitive. And I think he's super intuitive, and he just had a rough go. He was starting to have some different psychosis type episodes, unfortunately. I remember there was this one week we were supposed to hang out. We were going to go to a really low key concert together, and he bailed. And for me, that's like a huge red flag of we need to watch out for him, because he was always at concerts all the time. That was like his lifeblood. And fast forward, it's a Friday at 11 a.m. and I'm at work. I'm working in downtown San Francisco, and I get this overwhelming feeling to call my friend. So I excuse myself early for lunch. I walk to a nearby park because I just had this feeling I want to talk to him, but I don't want it to be in the hustle bustle downtown San Francisco with horns and Muni blaring in the background, people screaming. So I go to this park and I call him, and we have this I remember he answered the phone and his voice was just not himself. And it was so resigned, like he had given up. And he was saying things like, I won't repeat them here just for privacy, but essentially he tried to commit suicide about 2 minutes before then by swallowing a lot of pills and drinking a lot of alcohol. And so the effects hadn't totally hit yet. But we had this conversation where all of a sudden he came back. And he sounded like himself again. And he was like, I don't know what to do next. I was like, well, I'm about 45 minutes from you. I can come there, but I think it's best if you call an ambulance, or I can call one, but it's probably best if you do. And so he said, okay, I'm going to, and then I'll call you back. So, okay. He called the ambulance. I called one of his friends who he lived with to let him know what was happening. Our friends came together to make sure that he was supported. He did go to the hospital. He was fine. But that was a moment where my intuition kicked in. And again, it wasn't this like psychic stars around my head, hey, do this thing. It was this internal knowing that felt so grounded and solid of like, do this now. And I'm so happy I did. And those are two very intense examples of how my intuition has shown itself to me and has been practiced in a way, right? Has prompted me to see something or act in a certain way. So I think our intuition is really, really powerful, and I'm happy to speak about it more in the future. But if you get anything out of this episode, I just really hope you see the power of your own intuition. I believe everyone is intuitive. It's just at different strengths and operates in different ways. It's nothing to be afraid of. You know, it's not going to shout things at you that you're not going to like. I mean, maybe you might resist certain messages, sure, but it's not like you're going to start seeing ghosts everywhere unless maybe that's meant for you. But our intuition is, I think, more subtle than people understand. It operates on such a gentle level. And again, I think it's so unique to everyone. Like my intuitive voice, you know, when I get a sense of something, it's like I hear it in my own voice, but it resonates in me where I know, oh, this is a message for me. This isn't just a random thought I'm having. So I encourage you to listen to that voice, to connect through it through things like mindfulness or meditation or whatever really connects you to yourself. That's the goal, right? And yeah, let's leave it there. I hope you enjoy future episodes that come out, you know, the future meditations, the future business topics. If you want a meditation on a certain business topic, please enter them in our hotline. I'll include it in the show notes. But that's where you can say, hey, I'd love to learn more about this topic. And then we'll do an episode on it. And then we'll do a meditation on it. So that is open to you. If you want to listen to another topic, feel free. It's like a mailbox, like put anything in there. With that, we'll wrap up today's episode. Feel free to follow or subscribe the show. Subscribe to Side Note if you haven't already. Leave a rating or review if you got something out of this. And with that, I'll see you on social. You can find me at growwith_Sam, and you can find information about my coaching practice at www.growwithsam.com. Thank you all.